Hi there, welcome to the Noah Presgrove case. This is more of a raw video where I will be acknowledging some previous comments on a recent discussion, amongst other things, and the case itself within, and leading up to Noah's death and answering any questions. But to start the video off, I'll be sharing my own thoughts in regard to some predictions, what I sense, what I feel, what I've seen myself and witnessed, and how questionable it really is, and in some ways disturbing that light side, dark side, scrap that. It's what's within the middle in its own self form, which is a problem. And I'll be trying to explain that as best as I can today. But in the meantime, welcome to those that have joined the live premiere. And if you're here early, feel free to make use of the live chat on the right hand side of the screen. Let me know your thoughts, talk about other things. You can just talk about things, whatever. If you want to catch up on recent videos of mine to do with other parts within this case, you'll be able to locate that top right corner where the eye symbol is up there. You get the full playlist and some loose videos too. If you want to catch up or in your own time, feel free to do so. I can look at some comments there from the video last night at least. It might give a bit more context if you haven't seen it already, because when it comes to like a form of common sense within this case, you break it down and you revert back not to the facts, you revert back to the common sense. It leaves quite a few holes open for questions and more, which may have not been answered at this point in time. And I'll always try and refer back to that when I can. If anyone wants to support the channel in alternative ways, just as a heads up, down below in the comments section, pinned message by me, there'll be a comment with link to channel membership and then a link to PayPal, which is more practical and anonymous. With that being said, big shout out to those that have supported the channel in recent time, and especially those in the background. That's all good. But with that being said, just to kick things off in no special particular order, whilst yes, for some time now, the reference of the dark side versus the light side is basically Team Caden Pressey. Dark side has been interpreted as anti-Caden Pressey in a hateful way, but that's not always the case. Dark side is more Team Jack Newton and other party goers, whilst being somewhat cautious, suspicious, or questioning Caden Pressey based off discrepancies. That's how it's more presentable nowadays, at least. So you got like opposition, there is division. It should be as simple as that, right? But it's not, because some people from the light side, in a way, have gone to the dark side, and maybe some from the dark side have gone into the light side. But where did they actually originate from in the first place? Who knows? And that's a little bit of a problem itself. And then you'll get people in the middle. And when I say in the middle, I don't mean it as a form of balance. I don't mean it as a form of sitting on the fence. I don't mean it in regard to majority of my viewers. When I refer to in the middle, I'm talking about it's not completely new, but it's much clearer now how it's formed. And I'm going to be as vague as possible because there are so many attacks on me in recent time, it's a little bit ridiculous, okay? I would call it the band of misfits. And that's noticeable in regard to certain usernames and people who I'm familiar with who are viewers on my channel, and for some time have left comments, at the time at least, sharing their thoughts. A little bit two-faced, I'll be honest with you, and more with time. Two-faced viewers that will act and say stuff here, but then elsewhere they'll say what they really think or react in such of ways which support the actions by someone else in attacking me. All whilst at the same time claiming to care about the case. And granted, whilst there may be and other misfits are multitasking, it's just got a bit of a questionable undertone. Honestly, the state of this case community is at an all-time worst, and it's just as bad as the Dylan Rounds case now. And the attacks on me, the same exact style and methods as seen and experienced back in 2022. Deep fakes, fake AI to insult me without my consent, photos used of me without my consent. At a time of early on in this case when I was covering it and we came across that Travis Davidson that was threatening to sue me, even though I didn't mention their name, I didn't show their photo, I didn't really do anything, and yet I got attacked. That's how it started. And then ever since, continuous, and harassment, and threats, and more. And in between, or more so recently, another full-on attack. Why? This is where the breakdown in communication comes about, and I've seen it with many other humans as well. I make a reference to someone looking like something else, but no name mentioned, but a year was given, 2022. Was the Noah Presgrove case present in 2022? No. Did Noah Presgrove die in 2022? No. Did these different communities, Facebook pages and people and certain YouTube channels exist back then in 2022? No. Is it not obvious that what I was referring to and who I was comparing to was an individual back in 2022 in a completely different case and community? And another individual has taken it upon themselves to label themselves as that. How silly. No names mentioned by me, no direct correlation to them. But people, and it's more than one with time, will listen to my videos, even if they detest me, almost like stalk my videos continuously, listening to what they want to listen to selectively, even if it means misunderstanding, maybe on purpose, what's said, and then twisting it afterwards. It's really embarrassing. Fully grown adults, much older, more experienced than me in many different ways. And yet in my reality, how people are acting and behaving, doesn't matter where, doesn't matter what place or time, very distorted. It's somewhat disturbing and strange, weird. See, in the Dylan Rounds case, came across the same exact type of people, personalities and behaviour. I put up with it for 3 years, if not longer, and it faded, of course. But along the way, seeing the behaviour in people, it can be a creator, it can be viewers. Sometimes the viewers are worse than the creator. They should know better, but they're the masses. They can be the power, the voting force, and if in the wrong hands, can be dangerous. But I've seen both sides, the YouTube side, the YouTube streets, as people called it back then in 2022, how people behaved there and what people had to say about others and the victim's family, Dylan's family and parents and more. And then as soon as they were maybe on Facebook, on the main page at the time, reaching out with support, sympathy, oh, I'm so sorry, oh, it's such a shame, oh, if there's anything I can do, I really care. Cut the act. Two-faced behaviour. I've seen it too many times. I'm seeing it in this case as well. And maybe fast forward on down the line, if in the presence of victim's family, these same individuals could be like, oh yeah, we really care about the case. Know it is what's most important here. Say all the right stuff, read off that script in the head, and appear as a good person. It wasn't that long ago when some kind of peace treaty was made, even though there didn't need to be one in the first place, because I never directly had a main problem with some people, but people created it in their own minds and fantasies that there was some kind of issue or problem. And then along the way, oh, it was okay. And other people convinced by it. People that should know better, people that have been around longer. Really weird stuff going on. I would say the misfits are worse than the light side and worse than the dark side. I think if you're on the light side or the dark side, and that's where you originate from, you're not a crossbreeder, you're not all over the bloody place, you originate in one place and you're consistent with that group and mindset. And you might be at heads with one another, but if I be honest with you, sharing my thoughts and my predictions and forecast, if you're on the light side and you don't like or you have trouble with people from the dark side and vice versa, it might be the least of your worries that when something is posing as a greater problem, and that is the people in the middle, subcell divisions and groups. Questionable behaviour, questionable acts, questionable support, and much more. See, you get a handful of people like with the Dylan Rounds case that go elsewhere, and how they respond is basically laughing, joking, really enjoying it in questionable ways by the acts of someone else clearly doing very questionable things and breaking multiple guidelines, and that's all okay and fine. Whereas yes, you can always say certain individuals may need checking out or assessing. I think viewers do as well. I said no names mentioned at this moment in time, because what's the point going in too deep when you know how people will act? But I'm doing this as a heads up, because there might be other people out there that are having trouble with the dark side and dark side having trouble with the light side. Maybe tone it down a little bit and look elsewhere. As for a third group, the third group, in a way, is some of the worst, to be honest with you. In terms of anything else within this case, prediction-wise, do I predict that there'll be some breaking news or there will be an update coming up? Honestly, no, because there just hasn't been enough patterns or trends to establish in this particular case. This case has been definitely more broken down and not enough communication, not enough updates online. Is it ever possible that some of Nerd Presgrove's family members don't anymore because they feel it leads to resistance online? If it ever did, if that was ever a reason, that would be obviously a great shame. Partners in True Crime, still quiet. They did say in 2025 at some point they were returning back, but they weren't specific in terms of returning back to what. Is that Nerd Presgrove? Is that the other podcast, what they do? Who knows? It's uncertain. Along the way, there are grey areas that still need filling, and there are other areas which have kind of just faded in some way. As in, oh, something has been highlighted or found, talked about, but not followed up on enough. The likes of Kathy Bingham, kind of disappearing the face of this earth in the case. Last known presence I remember was when they were questioning Caden Pressey out of nowhere. I know some people along the way, maybe skipping some others, have said, you know, some of these party goers that may receive extra evidence or material to view and witness themselves, like Kathy going to Caden, was the same level of treatment done to other party goers. And if police at any point, like Zachary Wright, shared his own opinion and thoughts of what was the cause of death, what could have been based on his opinion, showing it to Jack, then Jack passing it on. And we saw the screenshots of that, even though we didn't see the screenshots directly from the horse's mouth of Zachary Wright. But if it was true and if it did happen, why would Jack receive that information from Zachary Wright, but someone like the victim's family members, like Robin Smith, never heard anything mentioned like that from Zachary Wright? Sounds like different levels of communication amongst different people. And you'd think, in a way, the highest form of communication in terms of a hierarchical structure would be the victim's family, that they would hear updates first, compared to maybe other people. And those outside of the case. But then again, in fairness, not so much to do with the truth, but just how things came about, rumours and BS, but treated as a fact early on. In the Dylan Rounds case, there was a few times where there was a chain of command, where there was outsiders, just members of the general public that claimed to know more, had a lot more to say, didn't always give their sources or give enough context, but they were saying, well, on behalf of this, on behalf of that family member, on behalf of the research, this is the case, these are the facts. And were they ever true? For the most part of it, no. Was it a waste of time? Yeah, but it happened. So in this case, Noah Presgrove related, with time, it feels like some stuff has been unwinding, gone from facts or a consensus that something did happen when it actually didn't, or it's not quite sure whether it actually did or didn't, along that lines, if that makes sense, hopefully. Can't give you full-on examples right now. Maybe the one I can mention is about Noah wanting a ride home, or Noah inquiring to his father for a ride home calling, and yet the horse's mouth, the witness, Victor, the father himself, Victor Presgrove, had said in his own words, maybe some weeks ago now, that Noah never called him. And yet it came from somewhere. It was mentioned as a fact or as an actual event previously. But if the actual horse's mouth says it didn't happen, then you'd think, well, it didn't happen. So who the hell made it up then? Or who the hell misinterpreted it then? And which then led to what? Chinese whispers, and it spread. You could ask yourself, where else could that apply? What else could that link to? What else that may have made sense no longer makes sense because it's unravelled, or that more can be unravelled with time, which kind of comes across as if you're going backwards in the case, not making progress, going the other way. That's not good. That what you believed was true or reality is no longer. Completely lost. Where do you go? What do you do? What do you think? Well, I guess you got to revert back to the original cold facts and I guess common sense too. So can we do like a little example right now, as in to demonstrate how things could go all downhill and then where one would end up at, because maybe it could help viewers in the future if you ever get to that position where you feel lost in some way. I mean, there'll be supposed footage out there which may show some events before the death, but not publicly viewable. So I'm not going to include that in my little demonstration now, okay? 1:50 in the morning. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but at least when it comes to public material, photos or videos, 1:50 in the morning is the last known time of Noah Presgrove being documented on camera, at least what's been released publicly. From 1:50 to 3:30, the supposed time of when he walked away to cool off. Any hard evidence or proof to say that's the actual time Noah had walked off? No, not at least publicly of knowledge, because there's no CCTV camera footage because it wasn't working, supposedly. That's pretty much it. You want to be really cold, you want to be somewhat realistic. At 1:50 is the last known time of Noah Presgrove being documented and in a good mood, reasonably happy, content, of whatnot. And then after that, not as much. Granted, there might be some snaps here or there, but from other people's points of views, which does not involve Noah Presgrove in the footage. Now, apologies if I have missed out anything. I'm just basing off my memory and what I can remember in regard to September 4th, 2023, Monday morning onwards. But yeah, Sunday, more footage, different points of views of Noah, and it being mainly positive. But as of Monday, not so much. I mean, okay, before 1:50, you've got 1:05 in the morning. Just under an hour time difference. And at 1:05 timestamp, Caden Pressey outside of the building, front porchway patio, recording Noah and Brylan. Whilst yes, you could say it's interpreted as a bit tense, or Brylan Sweat may have been holding a supposed knife, as some have claimed in the audio of some sort. What does it mean at the end of the day? What does it lead to? I mean, if Caden Pressey, and some of us can confirm that Brylan Sweat was asleep at an acceptable time, would that be an alibi for Brylan? I mean, honestly, I do get mixed up with the names, the combinations of people. I definitely know Mikey Lair, but then is it Brylan Sweat, Mikey Lair switching places in between 2:43 to 5:15 or so, switching places from floor to chair, chair to floor, movement involved, waking up, standing up, switching places. But did they wake up just to switch places or do other stuff? And at what time? Would it have been a time of when Noah was going to die or something? Or when he was walking away? I wonder. Caden mentions how he went to sleep at 2 in the morning. At what time did the other guys, go to sleep? At the same exact time as Caden? Or before, or a bit later? Were they already like tucked in or resting? I wonder. The only other slight problematic area, honestly, and I've mentioned it myself and other people have catched on since, is that when, regardless of the timeline, the actual timestamp, 5:15, or as the opposition say, 6:15, based off what Caden says, when Jack Newton burst through the door and the door was like banging against the side, kind of startled, woken up Caden Pressey. You'd understand that. A loud bang, unexpected, makes you jump, wakes you up, possibly sobers you up, maybe. But Caden Pressey said when that happened and the news came out, then Caden had to wake the other guys up. Brylan, Mikey, Isaac. Are you telling me that when that door burst open and made a loud bang sound, enough to wake Caden up, the other guys who were next to Caden just did not hear it and did not wake up? Maybe some people are heavy sleepers compared to others, but even those that may have a bit of a deep sleep or somewhat knocked out can still be woken up by certain sounds and noises. So it just makes me wonder. The only other way of possibly interpreting it is if it kind of woke the guys up, but not completely, or they didn't quite have time to process it the same way as Caden did. So that by the time Jack was already out the door and back to the highway, and Caden was waking the guys up, more so just alerting them or saying, hey, come on, snap out of it. You know, this is reality. This is what's happening right now. We need to go on down there. Unless that's what Caden meant, but I think in his own words, Caden did say, wake up the guys, as if they were still asleep. And it's hard to believe with the loud bang sound and the commotion as well with voices. So I just thought I'd throw it back out there once again. Obviously the video that I did last night, the mention of could there be a stranger somehow at some point tagging along at the party or passing on by, and if Noah had distanced himself from the party and he's alone and he hasn't got anyone around him, a bit more vulnerable, susceptible to bad things happening and no witnesses being about, and yet Robin Smith was the one that said there was evidence or proof to say Noah wasn't alone. What does that mean though? At the time of the death, before or after? At the time of the death could imply more so a murder situation or a form of foul play at least. Because if there is evidence that Noah wasn't alone, then there must be someone present at the time. either they're responsible for Noah's death or they know what happened to Noah's death but didn't speak up and they try and cover for themselves or for someone else. That would imply foul play. We've not got a follow-up, we've not got an update on that in regard to Robin Smith, so maybe I'll have to do a standalone video, just title it the way I did, say it the way I've just done now in a separate video just to go back over. So here's the thing, it's not something I've done as much in this particular case because there's been a lot of stuff to go on and on and on with. But in the Dylan Rounds case, there was quite a few times where I was very repetitive and it did piss people off. People did get bored, which is understandable, but I did it because it did lead to some kind of answers or a little bit of movement along the way and brought in maybe the right people at times, a little bit of a boost. Going over it so many times to learn it from so many perspectives because you might not be able to see it all in one go, one setting, that as well. Of course, there's a process to everything, so the process is what I've done back then, I'll still apply till this day. And, you know, viewers here and there that watch the videos that may feel a little bit confused or because how they've been impacted by other people out there, but they still manage to try and listen into what I'm saying and they do manage to understand what I'm saying. Big shout out to those people. And, you know, might see some of that in the comment section a bit later on. I mean, the first person that comes to my mind could be like Melanie Fagan, because understandable where they're at or where they were at a point in time in the case and who they looked up to. That's fine, that's normal, that's all good. And then as news came about in the case or things were leaked and discrepancies started showing, you might take a little step back and think, oh, I'm not too sure what to think now, or I'm doubting or questioning it just a little bit. And obviously that can build with time and that's understandable as well. But what does it actually lead to? And does it get worse? Do you go backwards? What point do you stop within the knowledge of the case? Do you just go all the way back to the very start of the case, as in, I don't know what to believe anymore, I don't know where to go? And that might be how it is with some people, but in terms of what some have said to me, is that with the videos that I've done and the moments of things that I've said, not to sound as dramatic, but on a smaller scale, it's saved people in a way from being completely lost. Like, some stuff that's said may put it into perspective for some people, so then they can put the foot down and think, you know what, yes, that method is needed, and that, whilst it's quite dark or questionable, also needs to be done as well. Needs to be looked into, mentioned. Easier for me, of course, because I've done stuff like this previously. So I kind of know how things can go and what needs to be done. It's like when Robin Smith and what other people may have been saying, oh, in recent time, is this some kind of assault attack on Robin Smith all of a sudden now? Well, at least to my knowledge, it's only happening now, not the attack, but the coverage, because it's only come about now. You get what I'm saying? It wasn't posted back then. It's the same with some of the Snapchat posts, which could be deemed as going against Caden Pressey. Oh, we're now attacking Caden, trying to gaslight him and say he's wrong about this and that. No, it's only being covered, documented, analysed and assessed by me now, because it's only become available now in recent time. Nothing more, not much else I could do back then, because I was completely unaware of it. What you should be asking yourself, if you really were questioning it, instead of towards me, would be more so towards the distributors or the ones that had it in the first place. Why did it take them so long to release it? In some ways, what's been said by the dark side, because some phones were only handed back to the people in recent time from the police, supposedly. And as for a thumbs up from the police on in regard to what can be released and what can't be. There's a time and process to that. That's what's been said. You don't have to believe in it, but I'm just giving you a bit of context in regard to what has come around. I did see a comment by Beauty Garumo in regard to why do a handful of people over time just jump to something and believe in it as if it's a fact when there's not actually any cold, hard, solid evidence of it actually happening. I would say there is exceptions if you're trying to have your trust and hope within a party goer like Caden Pressey up to a certain point in time, yes. You got to see it, you got to feel it and experience it through the eyes of someone else when you weren't actually there. And you'd hope to think that what they saw, what they heard, and now what they're telling you is the truth and nothing but the truth. But that's not always the case, because some will do it in a manipulative way. Others will do it because they genuinely believe in what they see or heard or saw, but maybe mistakes are made along the way and it shows with time. It's an unfortunate situation, but I'm just throwing it out there loosely for points of views. No direct flow. Seen some comments in recent time. I know Jan Fiorillo has had a lot more to say recently, and referring to Donna Bond as well. And then some of the people referring to Donna Bond saying how she was on the light side and now appears to be on the dark side. And that when she was on the light side, she was attacked or questioned or legal issues with people from the dark side. And ever since, has that been cleared up? Was it cleared up on neutral terms? Was it cleared up because Donna switched to the dark side and helped them with stuff? Of the people in the background suggesting that, Donna and somebody else gone to the light side as like spies, created things, set stuff up, gained intel, then moved back to the dark side like a private investigator of some sort. All kinds of wild things being suggested or mentioned. Who knows what's going on? In regard to Jan Fiorillo, who may have a lot to say and how they word their paragraphs and the time they spend to type them up, it does take time, so I understand. But if you're to align yourself with some of the questionable humans out there, can you clearly see yourself that there might be people out there that supposedly care about the case or know her, and whilst their actions and acts, for most part of it, could be deemed as very clever and hard-hitting and straight to the point, and I'm not talking about me either, but along the way, side actions and obsessions are very, very questionable and disturbing, that you think that's normal? Or will people come across as the dismissive approach, downplaying it? Oh, well, it doesn't matter if Warlike Raf gets attacked, or it doesn't matter if there's threats here or there, as long as the person's doing it for the case and by Noah Prosgrove, that's all that matters. But just completely disregard Warlike Raf that has, tried keeping the case alive, tried making sense of it, tried helping people learn along the way, whilst on the sideline doing separate stuff with a clear disclaimer in the videos as a form of light-heartedness to further help people if situations get bad or messy in the case or elsewhere. Oh, that's bad, that's unacceptable, but it's okay for other people to act threatening and go beyond, like really beyond, that's normal. It's very warped people's mindsets, I'd say there. In regard to video coverage, the video that I did last night was kind of like, of course it was short. It was short because there's only so much that could actually be said without repeating myself too much there, at least. But last night's video was like a form of common sense being used, dialing back to leading up to the death. There's not different timelines, but there's different chapters to Noah's outcome. Start, middle, and end. The end being the death. The middle being kind of like the build-up leading up directly to the death. The start being the first day or two present at the party. Saturday, and then Sunday evening. The midpoint, the build-up part, would be Sunday night onwards, going to Monday morning more so, up to when Noah had walked away, and then end point being the death. And with what's gone on recently, there have been some very key points made by some people from the dark side, which may have been forgotten a little bit recently, but it's like sort of Tim Daniel, when Tim Daniel mentioned about, what was it, the freshness of the blood. It was rather fresh. So that could give an estimate of maybe the time of death when it actually happened. And then I was adding on my thoughts, and I can't remember completely because it required quite a bit of deep thinking in the moment to try and work it out. But depending on cause of death, time of death, location, if you did it in a certain order or managed to work it out or estimate one of them, it could follow a line, a chain reaction. You learn one thing over another and then over another, and you could maybe work it out that way. But really, in this case, there'll be some events and points which happened later on in the timeline compared to other stuff earlier on in the timeline, but we might be jumping around and not actually going in a linear order bit by bit, because with the updates and the news that may come along the way, or screenshots which come along the way, and material and evidence supposedly, it might be to do with later events. So you're kind of jumping ahead to learn about that, but still the previous thing isn't quite making sense because you haven't got the material for that. But there is still movement in a way. With that back and forth, the mind can become a bit discombobulated. So you're not actually following a proper linear order, because every time you're learning something new, or what you believe to be true is no longer, and now it's been replaced with a different truth. It might be out of sync, it might be in a different order, it might be later on, it might be right around the time of Noah's death or just a bit before. But then what about the shower situation? What about the side-by-side rollover? Certain events here and there can get forgotten about because there's so many different events in this case. If you want to refer to significant events, well, I'd highlight the side-by-side rollover being the first one, followed by the shower situation the second, followed by the bedroom debacle, and then the act of walking away to cool down. Granted, in between, if between the shower and the walking away, if there is a teabagging moment, as some have said, and being fed some food, I mean, are there any areas in this case, small little events or actions which may or may not have happened, but it's not quite clear, and some could be lying, others could be exaggerating, but whether it's true or not, it doesn't actually matter that much? Are there any examples like that? Not that I'm jumping all in on it, but like the act of Carter Combs feeding Noah some food. Some say it happened, others say it didn't. Based off the timeline, the time schedule, the time frame window, it might not be possible for it all to take place that, depending how you look at it. But if it didn't happen, and if some say it's a lie, how does it harm the case? How detrimental is it? Not trying to downplay or dismiss it, but in terms of all the events and some claims and rumours along the way, and for and against arguments in between, which supposed events aren't that detrimental to the case if it turned out to be a lie or not exactly true or somewhat exaggerated? Does anyone have a list of that? Kind of like as a form of damage limitation to prepare for the worst, but also in a more balanced way, it might not be as bad as you think. Things like that. I mean, a major event, a supposed major event, would be the supposed video recording of black shorts being removed, tampering with evidence. Michael Faye's Kaz said it had happened, made a reference to it. Many months later, we heard about Caden Press in that leaked interview, mentioning the same thing, and Kathy Bingham being the one to have the footage. So, not seen it publicly, but it's been mentioned by a couple of different people. Does highlight foul play if it is true? If it's not true, why would it be made up? You know, kind of drifting about in certain ways, depending how you look at it. Caden Pressey has been questioned by a range of different people, and even Alicia's been questioned. Is that, in a way, what's the motive behind it? I mean, in terms of me questioning, it would be down to the discrepancies of time and trying to understand that. And I can understand from Tim McDaniel's viewpoint, he has the same thoughts as well at times. But overall, holistically, applying it to other people that may doubt or question Caden Pressey and or Alicia, what's the main motive behind that then? And if anyone was to attack Caden or Alicia, what's the motive behind that too? Does anyone whatsoever believe Alicia and Caden are involved in Noah Presgrove's death? See, look, people say they want hard-hitting stuff or really dark questions. Don't worry, we can go there. Try and keep it under control though, but we can go there if needed. Does anyone, I'm not talking about myself, I'm talking about other people, does anyone genuinely believe Caden and or Alicia are tied up within the death of Noah Presgrove? There must be at a point in time, because Alicia Lee had said in the part 2 of Partners in True Crime interview, which was never publicly released but later leaked, in which Alicia had said that people have blamed her for Noah's death. It was like a hit and run. So, kind of wild. But there's been other wild moments in the case. You look back to, you get fake profiles. Fake profiles, default profiles, more so Facebook and others and one another have been saying, oh, that's Vanessa Salazar, that's Stevie Howard, that's Brooke Bounce-Carter, and so on and so on and so on. Is that based off perception? Is it based off intuition? Is it based off patterns, trends, and predictions with an accurate score and level measuring? Or is it done because people are just guessing? Guessing can be a bit dangerous at times and damaging. Look, in the Dylan Rounds case community, when it came to there was times where there was fake accounts, separate accounts, alternative ones, and based off some of the behaviour, language and wording, it was very obvious who was behind it. Was it guessing? Some could argue yes, but I was basing it off what I can sense, what I can feel, and for most part of it I was right, even if people did deny it themselves. That those that were responsible for having an alternative account or an impersonation one under the same email, that they could not be signed in on 2 accounts at the same time when it came to being in a live chat. I know some people since have said, well, I've done it, I've tried it, well, good for them. Maybe there's another way around it, but based off the time and the understanding, when you're on a device and you're signed in, you can't be signed in 2 accounts at the same time. And to reinforce, based off the past, whenever there was fake accounts or impersonation ones, there would be one present, but there wouldn't be like the same individual present on 2 different accounts at the same time. Just like when it's come down to the weird situation where people say that, for example, I am behind another account, but that's not the case, and there's no proof or hard evidence of that, and there'd be no purpose to have, another like fake account or anything like that. We've seen it recently. Oh, there is another person commenting in the chat. Okay, well, we're going to be straight up realistic right now, right? Might as well be at this point. Let's get rough. Let's get deep. You compare people in the chat, you compare them to myself, right? The claims at times, oh, Warlight Wrath is that other account commenting in the YouTube chat. It's not physically, nor is it possible whatsoever for me to be signed in on 2 different accounts at the same time commenting. It's just not possible, first of all. But secondly, with higher importance, people want to direct focus in a negative way towards Sharon or the other person. Their behaviour, their attitude, obviously of goodness, positive, good individual, and other people too present watching. Is it even possible for me to mirror or replicate that? Not at all whatsoever. I'm not a positive person. Simple as. I'm not a bubbly person. I'm not an overly talkative person. Might do it in a way on YouTube, but that's just because it's YouTube, that's because it's part of the thing and trying to make the most of it, and, you know, doesn't require too much. I'm shy, keep to myself, got no friends in real life, okay? So my personality, my behaviour will not be mirroring another person or channel out there when that person or channel out there, their behaviour is much more unique, cannot be replicated because some people are just unique, but more so cannot be replicated because I cannot physically or mentally do that myself because of the way my mindset is. Just how it is. But obviously, when it comes to humans, in this case, more so the community, the mindsets, the reasoning ability within some out there, it's just not there. Same said individuals that may go elsewhere, may claim to care about the case, but they claim to care about the case, they would not be acting in these ways or being impetuous as they are. And it's kind of like all over. In fairness, with the Dylan Rounds case, that was just all primarily on YouTube, with maybe the exception of Rumble, but that was kind of short term. In terms of YouTube, that's where all the conflict was at, where all the misfits formed and allegiances and all kinds of stuff went on. You go to the Noah Presgrove case, you've got conflict on the YouTube area with the way some are acting, but then you got more of the heavier drama kind of through Facebook and then Reddit. It's more spread out. But what's interesting, as spread out as it really is, the Dylan Rounds case was actually more popular than the Noah Presgrove case, you know, in terms of active members and just people watching along, and even just coverage itself from the news perspectives, the interviews, the parents, the victims' family. There's just a lot more going on, and it does differ from case to case, of course, but it was more concentrated in Dylan Rounds. You had Facebook, one page for most part of it, and then YouTube. Really small scale, but it worked. Not that lots of good came from it, you know, with all the conflict, but just the layout and format of it there, very different to this particular case. I mean, it's kind of random to say, but if anyone was watching along and was trying to figure out or wanted to know, how did I come across this case in particular? Or what made me cover it? First of all, it's not my first time covering true crime, because the Dylan Rounds case was the first true crime case I covered true crime, mainly because of the first case that I covered, Dylan Rounds, had similarities to the missing person mystery case of Kenny Veach, with it being a rural area, open, sparse, spooky atmosphere, the unknown. That's what brought me in with the similarities. I could transition on over fairly easily, and it was manageable. The same's applied to Noah Presgrove rural area. You see that pattern and theme. If it be an urban area, I don't know, maybe it just doesn't have the same feel towards me when I think of horror films. Do I think of horror films in crowded, busy places, or do I think of horror films in silent, desolate spots? That more so. There's a bit of a underlying theme there, but really you just cover what case you're interested in. The more interested you are in a case, the better you may perform, and you want good performance, right? If you want to, when I mean good performance, I mean in trying to report on the case or tell the story of the case correctly as best as you can. Been some times where I've tried other cases or other things which I've not been as focused or interested on, and the quality just wasn't as good, and the quality isn't as good long term. That could be detrimental to a case. So if that's ever picked up on or felt, then you need to step aside or just stop completely. And maybe in the Noah Presgrove case, along the way, some people don't know when to stop. That could come across as in, don't know when to stop in forcing agendas, don't know when to stop in forcing poor language and wording to turn a rumour, theory into a fact, and then it is unravelled down the line, and it was a waste of time, and it's confused a lot of people. Not knowing when people should stop in regard to pushing too hard for answers or truth and demanding in forceful ways. You can interpret it on and on and on. But as I've always said, well, I may have not said it as much or as clearly in this particular case, but like previously in the past, is that when covering a case, if there's a point or time where the performance goes or something becomes not good, then I might need to stop in regard to, for the sake of the case, so it doesn't get harmed or damaged. Or if I'm not fully focused or at 100%, then I shouldn't continue because it could harm the case in certain ways. That's like what I applied in the Dylan Round situation, and yeah, I covered that for 4 years. But there might have been some days I just didn't cover it because the accuracy level or the how things could be put across or executed may not work out as ideal as what one expects or wants. Something's got to be delayed or pushed back. Well, there we go. Is there anything else to highlight or acknowledge? Because I'm kind of drifting about, but just talking in general about the case. Obviously pre-recorded video, but if there's anyone in the live chat with any additional thoughts, responses, you can do so. Originally, I was going to consider looking at comments on a previous video of mine, which I think is probably still worth doing so. I might just speed it up a little bit when we get to that point. But I just wanted to do it in a specific order this time. Okay, no flashy photos, static images, boring like that, just raw as it is. So yeah, prediction-wise, I would just say that dark and light, conflict maybe. Look elsewhere though, there's a greater problem, possibly a greater threat. Because whilst there are people from the light side that have been attacked by those from the dark side, there are people in recent time from the dark side, even like Brooke Bounds Carter, that has been attacked, not by the light side, but attacked by the subcell divisions and groups of a third group of people, the misfits. So it's going in different directions now. So maybe that applies to people from the light side as well, who are getting attacked, but not from the dark side at this moment, but from a third group. And not so much a prediction, but a question or suggestion back in the past. Was there ever a time or point? Because at least from the start, from what Justin said, people from the light side, dark side, the Stevie Howards, the Brooke Bound Carters, the Jack Newtons, etc., the Caleb Newtons, were all on a page like the Justice Family Run page, and there was communication, there was conversation, and then it started to break down and disperse, and people were kicked or blocked, or there was tension, and it all went downhill. But it was okay at one point. Is it possible, by any chance, that there were third-party people, a third hidden group, not working on behalf of the dark side, not working on behalf of the light side, but implemented themselves into the case or community to plant things or to get certain people to go in different directions to cause havoc, mischief, to create that divide and conquer between the light and the dark side? To some extent, maybe. Because previously all it's been is, oh, light side getting attacked by dark side, oh, dark side getting attacked by light side side saying about the victims, dark side saying about the victims. But there's a shift now where attacks have been directed from elsewhere. and that's what needs to be looked into or observed to an extent. So just be careful yourself, see what happens with time. In the meantime, though, let's at least just look at the comments online on YouTube and just see what's said there and answer any questions if needed and whatnot. And yeah, here we are, and I'll adjust it to the newest. I don't know if it was on this video in particular or a previous one, but I do remember Jan Fiorillo left a couple of different comments and long paragraphs, but they're no longer present. So I don't know what's about all that, unless it's on a completely different video, but I think there have been times where Jan Fiorillo has left comments and then she's deleted them afterwards. And if Jan didn't do that, YouTube did. And let's not spark off some other conspiracy that Warlike Raf's doing it now. Jan Fiorillo has freedom of speech just like how other people do too, for most part of it. YouTube can be known for removing comments automatically, even if people have done nothing wrong. It's stupid, but nothing I can do about it. It's always like giving some context first. We got Java says, only a serial killer, you'd be labelled as one if you get caught. Really? But I'm sure there'll be serial killers out there, well known or not so well known, that have killed more than 3-4 people over a period of time, over months going on, and they've just not been caught, arrested yet. Would like that apply to the Zodiac killer, as in they were never really found or properly arrested, but they were still regarded as a serial killer? It's the only example I can think of on the spot. We got Lisa says, I still think Chris Pyatt played an integral part in this case. He was invited to the party by Avery. He was at that casino, he said himself, Sunday night until early Monday morning, where he had to pass right by Noah. He also, the guy that self-reported he thinks he may have hit his friend Noah on his way home from the casino early morning, Monday. He also drives a white service vehicle with a crane on it, like to fix high telephone wires. He's also the guy that owns the black truck that the cops got a search warrant for. She said he thinks he hit someone on his way home and was pretending he was driving his black pickup truck, but he wasn't. He was driving the white service truck. I mean, there's a lot to process here, I'll be honest with you. Skippy. Lisa, how did you hear he was actually driving the white truck, or is this a theory? It's so coincidental that he knows Avery and Noah and was on the same stretch of the highway on that crucial Monday morning, of course. At first glance, it would seem he may have hit Noah, but I read that LE talked to him and hopefully they checked both vehicles, but was he actually cleared? Unbelievably, LE was right on his lead. They obtained search warrant for only his black pickup truck within hours of Noah's death. Also within hours, Ellie decided to take the 2-hour road trip to Pyatt's home to inspect only the black pickup truck, whereby they found absolutely no evidence of him hitting anything or anyone. Go figure. So yes, he was cleared and they called it a day. So great work, gentlemen. What, you mean like the black vehicle was searched, but that wasn't the one actually used, hence why there was no evidence found on it? But the white one could have had evidence, but there was no search warrant, so the police didn't do a good enough for a job. Is that what Lisa's getting at there? Maybe. Not only did Chris know Avery and Noah somehow, according to his Facebook page, his list of friends included almost everyone at that party. What is really suspicious to me is the fact he called 911 on Labour Day, Monday afternoon, to say he thinks he may have hit his friend Noah. I don't think there was even a news report out yet naming Noah was as a victim. So how could he know that information? He knows at this point. They should have checked all his vehicles. No evidence of any animal having been hit was found on the highway, and there would be some sort of evidence even if the animal survived. Yeah. I wonder if he took OHP to the spot rather than them trying to guess where it could have happened. And if his story is true, but he was driving the white truck, why not just tell them about the white truck? After all, he's the one who contacted them. All the side stories. This one is really weird. It does sound weird, doesn't it? But of course, we'll see what else is mentioned with time. Skippy, you may have heard the news about Noah from his friends, and news travels faster amongst friends. Yeah, fair enough. That's a way around it, of course. I wonder why he didn't stop by the party since he was invited and he was just down the highway, or did he indeed stop by for a while, and if so, when? Also, he didn't seem to think hitting anything was a big deal since he kept driving home, so did he ever send Avery any type of message telling her how he had tried to send her an Instagram but got distracted and interrupted by hitting what he thought at the time was an animal? And then we've got Anna. If someone can confirm he was driving that white pickup with a crane, medical specialist made a reference to the cervical spine vertebrae, that this injury is common in hanging incidents. By the way, I'm still leaning towards a vehicle accident, but drunk teens with access to a pickup with a crane is a recipe for disaster. Chris P would most likely have dropped by the party on his way back. Dare stunt gone wrong, maybe? Well, he wished Avery happy birthday on Facebook. I'm sure he did stop by the party since Avery personally invited him to go to it, but don't have any proof. That's unfortunate, isn't it? He had to pass 5 other casinos on his way to Avery's house. I don't think gambling was his primary objective that evening. Carl, so you think he got from any person of interest stated because Ellie didn't know he was actually driving you a truck? And then Lisa, I think that specialist was referring to Noah's broken neck and broken spine resembling a hanging because he had a hinge fracture, which in layman's term means his head was hanging onto his body by a thread. What, internally decapitated? Is that what that means? All the bones were broken in between his body and his head, including his broken jaw, bone teeth, and broken nose, and his tongue was split. Definitely not a hanging, but I could see them using the crane for dragging Noah along the gravel road to give the appearance of road rash. There's a lot going on. Of course, anyone in the chat, after seeing what Lisa had to say here, let me know your reactions. I can't say too much at this moment in time because I've not really looked at it. I can't come to a conclusion on the spot. Does anyone know what football team did Noah play against Friday night in Comanche? Noah had already graduated. Oh yeah, you're right, I must have. So Noah went to the game with Robin because Robin's son was playing in the game Friday night, is that right? No. How do I word this? Robin Smith is the aunt to Noah Presgrove, so that would not be Robin's son. The actual mother to Noah Presgrove would be Casey Smith, based off that family tree. Robin Smith, the aunt to Noah Presgrove. Robin supposedly has her own son, whoever that person is, that was at a football game she attended to support. And Carter was there as well, supposedly. Hopefully that's clear enough. 4:48 a.m. Oh yes, to be exact, the woman said she saw the side-by-side come out of nowhere and scared her, which is interesting because that means Jack was not in bed sleeping at 5 in.the morning, so how could anyone go in and wake him up if he wasn't even in bed? Was Jack texting Logan and Carter at 4:30? I think they were all up all night cleaning the mess up and cleaning themselves up before showtime at 5:15. The whole cleaning up, what, on the highway or in the house? And what, Caden Pressey is amongst it all, completely oblivious, asleep. Penny, yes, me too. I think they had time to clean up evidence. Where though? On the highway? On the property? Inside the house? Where? Carl, I think this story of the woman being scared surprised at side-by-side coming out of the field of nowhere and racing past her is super significant. If I remember correctly, she saw several passengers along with the driver. Who were they all and what were they doing early? Wonder if Jack Newton's statement that Noah was dead at 4 in.the morning has any connection to the lady's story. Well, if it did, 4 in.the morning, time of death supposedly, closer to 5 in.the morning when the side-by-side's out of nowhere down the highway. What, it took an hour for what? 1 hour of cleaning up evidence? That's how it could be interpreted. Carl and Lisa, there's yet another one of those mystery side stories which could have a huge impact if true. It's been dismissed by some as not being true. I'm sure HP tracked down the source of the story. See, the thing is, it could be that important, but in terms of the follow-up on it online is very poor and lacking because it wasn't even the witness speaking out publicly in regard to it unfolding. It's a friend of a witness that was speaking online, and I just don't think it's good enough and not much effort behind it on top. AJ, Just because there was a claim to have seen a side-by-side one, we don't know if it's accurate because it was posted second-hand. Yep. We've never heard that from the person that claimed it themselves, the horse's mouth. Yep. 2, even if she did see a side-by-side, it doesn't necessarily mean it was anyone from the party house, as numerous people have side-by-sides. Yes, though you might just question it a little based off interpretation, depending who you are. Number 3, even if it was a side-by-side from the party house, it does not mean it was Jack or that he wasn't asleep. You're just constantly jumping to conclusions and stating false and inaccurate, unfounded info. Okay, so AJ isn't too happy. It's not the first time. We have never heard directly from the supposed lady, simply someone, Well, bless your heart, you gave it your best shot, I'm sure. Too bad you swung and missed the ball. That's strike 2. Uh-oh. Dear AJ, this lady made a 911 call, reported it to LE, so it's not a rumour, not second-hand information. How do we know that a 911 call was made and reported to LE? Where's the evidence and proof of it, though? We've seen those dispatch calls by Tyler H and Tyler Hardy. We've heard of them, but not this lady, though. Where's the reference or source? Where's the link of it? Carl to Skippy, yes, I know. I've always said this incident is highly suspicious, and also I want to know how the Texas boys were acting on Friday, Saturday, Dove Hunt and their interactions with Noah, if any. I also heard a rumour they were going to have a fight club event on a certain day. Is that true? But what type of fight club? Boxing, bare knuckle, mixed martial arts, American wrestling? What type? I know, was it TMZ that did that, panel of specialists or experts or media giving their thoughts on the case, and a fight club mentioned in regards to being slapped. It's not much of a fight club, is it? What's this? Carl. Okay. One day at a time. Good video, Ref. Thank you. You're welcome. Coco, something is not right about this party invite discussion. There's no way you put out a public invite and only 40 people show up. We did that in high school once and there were hundreds of people that showed up. That's a fair point. It is. If you do a public post online, you would think many would come. Unless there's limitations in regard to the reach or the social media platform you use, it differs from another which has better reach. We've got Melanie, thank you, Warlight Ref, still sick but trying to get better. Hope everybody else will feel better soon too. So big shout out to Melanie, and as well, one day get well soon, so get well soon, Melanie. Penny, thank you for still covering Noah's case, you're welcome. Can't believe after all this time, this case is still a mystery. Number 1 in jail for his death, shaking my head. You're welcome. Shout out to Glenn too. Caitlin Carter. Right, yeah. I'm just reading that carefully because I didn't want to get mixed up with someone else, but I think this is like an example comment of spam. This is like a spam comment, which YouTube approves of, which is a bit embarrassing. Great content, thanks for sharing. Bit off topic. I want to ask, my Bybit wallet holds some US dollars and I have the seed phrase, tag suit, turtle, raccoon, orange. What the hell are you on about? How should I go about transferring them? I ain't no finance expert. No clue what's going on here. This is spam. This is what happens with time. Mongoose. What about the teabagging prank that was mentioned? Could that have been retaliation? You never know, but it depends if it did actually happen. There is supposed footage of it, but it's just not been released yet. Noah walks off and certain people leave, see him on the road, liquor, bravado, pack mentality, encounter Noah, take him in an attack, perhaps some harassment prior to fatal injuries, could explain some of the short switch up mystery. Good luck sleuthing. So appreciate that, Mongoose. We'll see what happens next, of course. I don't know if I'm correct in saying, but is Max, you here? Were you from the Kenny Veach case? It's just a profile picture looks familiar. If so, that's good to see you still around. AJ, Noah's mother has stated, Casey Smith, she has the hat of Noah's amongst other items from the party that was given to her. Well, if so, that's good, but at least Robin Smith, Ashley Chadwick, and maybe some other family members like Dalen Presgrave are in the dark about items. There should be better communication within the family then. Remember Noah, whoever that is, says Noah's mother stated that to who, and where is the proof of the statement? It's a simple question. And how does AJ answer that question? I guess you don't pick up with the facts and details as well as you think you do. She posted it on a discussion page, the discussion page, months and months ago. Don't reply to me again, as I have absolutely nothing to say to your worthless self. You are absolutely despicable, Jan. So the situation, what we've got here is AJ Williams supposedly believes that Remember Noah, that channel, that user, is also Jan Fiorillo in disguise. But is there any proof and hard evidence of that in particular? It's a messy time, of course. Lisa, AJ, I think you're starting a rumour here. That's the biggest load of bullshit that I've heard. That's strike 3, you're out. Whatever that means. And Carl, why are you seemingly speaking to Jan when you're answering a question from a different person? Well, it's because AJ, I guess, believes that Jan is behind that account. Crazy. Then we got Mark. Seems like somebody planned for everything, but they couldn't imagine a war like Wrath, could they? I don't know what that means, but I guess it's positive, so I appreciate that. AJ, the injuries nor autopsy support murder, so discussing it as a murder and the cause for someone to murder him is a moot point. Well, when it comes to this channel, different points are acknowledged, even if you may look down upon some people and some people's ideas, even if it might not make any sense at all. There's no harm in acknowledging it. As long as it doesn't harm the case, then it shouldn't matter too much. Well, there we go. Doesn't have the knowledge nor training to accurately determine COD, cause of death, regardless of what is or isn't pending. Dude doesn't even have his days that events happen accurate, yet goes on long rambling spill that is completely irrelevant. AJ, once again, aiming it towards me. What good does that do? I'm not too sure, but obviously this person just continues. Shannon, thank you for your input on Noah's unfortunate death. I read a number of your comments on his channel. I believe I've read that you say it wasn't murder from your perspective. Whilst injuries and autopsy do allow us to determine certain things that didn't happen and or aren't supported by injuries or autopsy, such as murder beatings, there are still a number of incident scenarios that could have caused the injuries he sustained. Unfortunately, at this point, unless further information comes to light through investigation, discovery by detectives and ME working the case, I don't know if they will ever be able to truly determine the cause and manner any further than undetermined. A fall from a vehicle, fall from height, being clipped by a moving vehicle, etc. are all probable possibilities that would cause such injuries. I mean, like when Jack Newton mentioned about Noah possibly being clipped by a semi-truck mirror, but the height of those trucks and the mirrors might be above Noah's head, possibly. What else? You clearly have not read the autopsy report. You don't understand it. I can tell by the way you're talking. Do you know how many pounds of pressure it takes to break all your ribs posterior? That means just his back ribs were broken, and then puncture your lungs and heart and spleen. Do you even know where your spleen is? Not to mention his skull was broken in 3 pieces with chunks of skin the size of a baseball was taken off the top of his head all the way down to his brain. The poor child was beaten so bad his brain was exposed, and he had a hinge fracture to the base of his head, which basically means Noah looked like a Pez dispenser. That doesn't sound too appropriate, that. Do you know what a hinge fracture means? Because I sure do. You do not get any of these injuries from falling out of the back of a truck. Okay, now I'm getting fired up. Don't even get me started on Noah. Livor mortis patterns. There are 3 different blood pooling patterns, which means he has moved after death several times. He laid on his back for a while after death, where most of his blood had pooled. Then he was positioned on his stomach. Then he was positioned on his left side. Not a rumour, these are facts. There is so much evidence in this autopsy report that it was indeed a heinous murder. This case could be winning. Okay. Based off reading what Lisa has to say here, I'm sure AJ Williams is having a stroke right now when reading it, but we'll see. Quite clearly, you're not very experienced or knowledgeable on the matter, nor have you clearly examined, performed an autopsy or particular from a vehicle, and so on. So we're here already. Could Noah have been hit with a blunt object as someone drove past him? Maybe drunk idiots in the back of a truck hit him with a shovel or similar object with movement, led him towards on the highway, whether it was a purposeful act or a drunk dare. But I don't know if the velocity and angle of the attack could cause the white shorts to fly off. Yeah. See, we can look at shorts at some point when it's possible. Thank you again. Appreciate that. Oops. Oh no, not more. As far as finding the hat that Kayla Carter saw on top of the white trash bin, yes, Carrie Bingham needs to pursue it. Yes, and unfortunately it doesn't seem to have happened. Theory of an unknown partygoer present. Is it possible in talking in the morning? Seems unlikely because what would he be doing on the dirt highway? Just at the time of Noah was walking away. But you could question other areas in the case, the timing of when this person was here, when that person was there, what other groups were doing, bits and bobs along the way. Then we've got Larry. This case is so messed up, so many lies by the people that was at the house. And also I think the cops are not really trying to solve the case either, just my thoughts. Fair enough, that's just their thoughts. No harm in that. Tammy Brylan Sweat has been arrested for cattle theft. Okay, I mean, do we have proof and evidence of that? I'll give you my raw reactions to that right now. So in regard to that last point, it might have been brought up by another person elsewhere. How significant is it? The only reason why it's some kind of news and why it's been mentioned is just because it being a familiar name and face. Someone who was present at the party at the time of this whole case, what we're looking at. This particular event or possible crime committed by Brylan Sweat, supposedly, even though I've not seen any evidence, hard evidence of it taking place, it's a completely different standalone thing which has no direct link or correlation to how Noah Presgrave died and why he ended up dying. Separate, completely separate, but I'm not going to dismiss it completely. I think this small little example serves as a good reminder or a perfect example of how I do not lower myself to other people's standards, whilst other people out there like to minimise or downplay or criticise or insult how the way I cover this case, and then on top of it I do side separate stuff which has no link to the case, but people see it as a bad thing even though it's supposed to be a good thing to break down through the negativity with a level of lightheartedness. In this particular situation I could throw it back at people, but I'm not. But I'll give you a scenario. Could throw it right back and say, why the big deal? Who cares what Brylan Sweat has done with it? From bloody cattle, cows, whatever, milking them backwards, stealing milk, or other types of cattle, just in case the experts, I know, have a stroke from how I've interpreted it, because I'm not a cattle expert. Oh no, I don't know what I'm talking about. What am I going to do? Oh well, who gives a fuck? Animals are animals at the end of the day. And some humans act worse than animals, right? But that aside, you could just throw it out there and say, okay, Brylan Sweat, Avery, Carter, what? Any other name added to the list, that there'll be a microscope under them for the rest of their life at anything that they do in the future, anything that they get in trouble with the police down the line will somehow always link back to this particular case, even though there's no direct link. Why? What good does that do? Just sounds like you're trying to hold people back from being able to move on. It was like trying to make them suffer with time. But the reason, besides familiar faces and names, the reason why people will refer back to the likes of the Brylan Sweats or any other people that might get in trouble with police, may commit some kind of crime somehow at some point in the future, whilst it doesn't directly link to the case or the outcome of Noah Presgrave, and whilst it won't actually help solve the case at all, I think people are doing it just to provide a bit of, historical context, but not retrospectively, but more in the moment and maybe the future. But if any witnesses do get in trouble at some point, what happens to them? Slap on the wrist? Oh, well, slap on the wrist. Well, could have been the same for them back then in the Noah Presgrave case then, based on that mentality. People have already applied that, I guess, with, Carter Combs or Avery, speeding, going over the limit, too fast, but not paying the price. no punishment, a slap on the wrist. And that was before the death of Noah. Well, social hosting laws not being followed up on, slap on the wrist, avoided, invincible. Depends how you look at it. But if we're referring to Brylan Sweat, who has been arrested properly, well, you can't be going on about corruption, can you, with police in that situation? So it counts as some points at least. But, you know, whether Brylan Sweat's done recently, it's not linked to the case though. Yes, he was within the case as a person of interest back then, but as a witness to what exactly? Being at the highway at the time of what Caden says, maybe, maybe not. But not being woken up when Jack burst through the door, but Caden having to wake Brylan up along with Isaac and Mikey. That's what I find interesting. The only other point what I'll add on is with that Snapchat post of, which time is it? It's not 4:30, 5:27. I just want to be careful with the times. 5:27 a.m. if I'm correct in saying. 5:27 when Mikey is in a bed with his eyes open, awake, with Jasmine Millan and Logan Jernigan. As for the sleeping arrangement, not sleeping, but in a bed. Whose room exactly? Logan's? Avery's? Does anyone know? And furthermore, the question of, at that time of 5:27, whilst Mikey might be in a bed, was he like on the chairs, the floor more so, earlier on, at a time of before, you know, the 5:15 timestamp from Caden's story, more so around 2 in the morning to 2:43, around that time of Mikey being on the floor, resting, asleep. And then from 2:43 to 5:15, then from then, Mikey switching places with Brylan on a chair. And then what, from 5:15 to 5:30, whilst Caden was at the highway, from what he says, Mikey was still at the house, but decided to change places again into one of the girls' bedrooms. A lot of moving about. It's like Goldilocks in a way. The hell's going on there? These are just these little things along the way. Of course, what I do think is, if it truly, truly is true, based off the hard evidence, what we've seen, that you got Mikey there, happy, awake with the girls, in a bed, based off that time when Caden said he was with him at the highway. Caden couldn't have been at the highway based off that time, the emotions expressed in that photo. They wouldn't be happy, they wouldn't be smiling known if Noah was dead at that time and they knew about it. So if the Snapchat is really true and 100% genuine and authentic, at the time of Mikey being in the bed, it would have to be at a time when Caden was still at the house and there was no news of Noah's death at that point. That's all I'm saying. Because it just doesn't make sense if Caden was at the highway with Brylan, with Isaac, and Mikey was still at the house smiling. You just wouldn't be smiling after hearing the news of what's come about, correct? So there's a bit of a problem that. Of course, people have said that the Snapchat is fake, it's been manipulated, like other things in the past. But besides that part, there's not been any counter hard evidence of it being shown as manipulated. No one's been able to find that, so, right, no counterpoints. And to refer back to people calling this and that account online or on Facebook fake profiles, oh, it's that person behind it, it's this person behind it. I think people just rush ahead a bit too quick at times and jump ahead, which then leads to hysteria, which leads to Chinese whispers, and it just completely gets out of hand. I saw it exactly in the Dylan Brown's case. Oh yeah, it's that person, it's that person. Turned out it wasn't. Some people rush ahead. Some people can get falsely accused and get caught up in stuff, just like I've been falsely accused myself. So I've seen it from different sides. But anyway, I'm going to leave it there for now. This was just a raw video, and then I'll see where I'm at next time with the next video that I cover. Hopefully you found it somewhat interesting. If you want to share, hit the thumbs up. That'd be appreciated. And yeah, my name's Ref. Thanks for watching. Goodbye. Good night for now.